Hello, today we're going to go through some of the work that we've done recently on our dialogue system, as well as our NPC patrol and wander behaviors, fix some bugs, and clean up some code. Hi, my name is Michael. Welcome to my 2D action and adventure RPG tutorial series. Follow along and learn how to create your own ARPG in Godot 4 using GD script. Alright, so this is going to be a more of like a bug fixing and polishing session before we move on with the rest of our NPC. There's a few rough edges that we have with some of the pieces that we've developed, and so I want to take this opportunity to clean them up now. So we're going to cover, let's see, I think 4 things today. I guess 5 actually. So we've got an audio pitch, minor issue with the audio pitch that I want to address with our NPC resources. We also have some code that I intended to put in that we didn't, where we can make our dialogue system a little bit more dynamic by causing the wait time to be different if it's like a period at the end of a sentence. I want to update the audio playback on our portrait script so that we get a little bit better effect from it. And then there's 2 bugs that I want to fix, one related to our patrol on our NPCs, and another one related to the wander. And both of these are related to how those interact with the dialogue system. So stay tuned today if you want to fix those issues, and we'll go ahead and get started. So first off, let's look at our NPC resource, and let's go ahead and go to our scripts panel, and I've already got that open, NPC resource, but you may need to find yours in the file system. In fact, I can right click and say show in file system. There we go. So that's going to be under NPC and scripts. And we have this dialogue audio pitch that we exported in our last video so that we could vary the pitch of the NPC audio that's played when we're talking. And there's one minor flaw with this, and that's that we didn't specify a range, and there are 2 reasons we want to. One is because really low ranges like 0 and lower are invalid, I believe, and really high ranges are just going to sound really terrible. Okay, so we kind of need to curate that, I think, to some degree. And so what we'll do, this is a simple fix. We're just going to say export range. So we're not going to change the variable type or anything like that. We're just going to give it a range of 0.5, the low end, to 1.8. And actually 1.8 might be kind of high, but whatever. And then we can give it one additional argument here, 0.02. And this one is the interval at which the changes will happen. You don't have to do this if you don't want to, but I like it. It'll kind of help snap our values as we adjust them. That's all we need to do there. Now, in the future, if we make a new NPC, we won't be able to set a value that's too low. And especially because we're adding and subtracting from this, if you set this value really low, like below 0.1, and then with our random range, you might end up with a 0 or a negative number, and that won't work. So we can't assign a negative number to the audio stream player's pitch value. So that's our first little fix, quick and easy. Now let's move on to the second one, and this is going to be in our NPC Portrait script. So let's go over to our dialogue system. So if you recall, in our portrait sprite, we added this custom script in our last video, and we do some, this is where we control the portrait animation, and we also did some audio playback. And this can sometimes have maybe undesired, I don't know, effects, or maybe not undesired, but not quite good enough. And what I want to do real quick is let's go to our NPC2, this one that's on the patrol behavior. And let me just add one of these dialogue interaction scenes. And then underneath the dialogue interaction, let's add a dialogue text. Okay, and then we'll just put something, actually, we can just leave it as placeholder text for now. Well, no, I want to do this. Let's say, hi, how's hero? Okay, so just a short thing, and then let's just play this and let's notice what happens. We're going to see 2 bugs. We're going to see first bug, which is where the NPC is going to like kind of teleport. We'll deal with that one in just a moment. But the other bug, it's not a bug actually, it's just not cool enough. Hold on, I got an error. Oh, okay, this is one reason why the pitch scale is important. Right, it's less than 0. Let's stop and let's play that again. Interesting. Okay, I think we have a bug happening here that's related to what we saw last video, where this NPC's values maybe aren't set. I don't know. I'm not sure what's going on. Let's just set it high and let's try running this again. Okay, so that's working. For some reason, if we haven't touched these NPCs after we change that resource script, I think it's passing in a 0. So anyways, you notice how it only beeped a couple times? Feels like that could be better. Okay, so that's what we're going to address right now. So when we look at the Dialog Portrait script, I want to add a few things here to check open mouth. So what we've done with the vowels here seems appropriate, and I'm okay with that. But I realized that we might actually want to play an audio, even if it's like an exclamation mark. But in this case, I had this thought that instead of setting the pitch to this random value, we could just set the pitch to like a lower value than all the other ones. So it kind of signifies the end of a sentence or something like that. So we'll just do audio pitch base -0.1 and then play that. Okay. And then I want to do one other thing here, and that's that down here where open frames equals 0. I want to just adjust this. So I think if this is the frame where the mouth closes, then we want to do a little bit more. So we're going to add just a tiny bit of code here. So first we'll say if open mouth equals true, because we only want to do this when the mouth is open. Otherwise, there's no point in doing even setting open mouth to false, right? And then what we'll do is we'll just take, I think I've still got that on the clipboard. Yeah. We'll just take this code and we'll play it again. But we can do a lower pitch so that the consonants are always a little bit lower. Okay. And then we'll just play a sound on some of those, but not all of them. So now if we go ahead and run the project, and we talk to this guy, it should sound a little bit better. Yeah. And let's go talk to our original NPC. Cool. Okay. And then one other thing that I want to address that's related to this, what we're doing right now, and this is in the dialog system, is I want to go to our start timer function, which is going to be at the bottom of your script, probably. At least that's where mine ended up. And you noticed I put this little comment in here when we were working to manipulate the wait time, but we never did. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. The first thing we're going to do to be able to manipulate that is we want to just get the current character. And so this is very similar to what we are doing in the portrait, where we're kind of reacting to the character. Okay. And but we're going to do it on a more limited basis. So we'll grab our character from this. Let's see, we're going to get the plain text at the index of our visible characters -1. Okay. And then we're going to do, you remember that weird check that we did in the dialog portrait? Like this. We're actually going to use that same kind of logic here. Okay. So if it's one of these, and then I'm going to throw in like colon, semicolon. If this contains the character, then we want the timer wait time to be longer. And I'm going to just multiply it by 4. So it'll be 4 times as long of a wait if it's like a period. And actually, we probably don't want comma in this one. Probably just period. Okay. And then we can do an elif. And then let's go ahead and copy this line. And for this one, we'll do a comma and a space. And we'll say timer.waitTime times equals. And here we'll just do 2. Okay, so if our current character is one of these, we'll just wait a little bit longer before we do the next one, and then we can still call timer start. And this is going to be pretty subtle because of how fast our text is typing. It's more noticeable if you slow it down. I don't know, that was hardly noticeable on that guy. But anyways, it gives a little bit different cadence to it. Okay. For fun, we can go in here and we can manipulate our text speed to like 0.1. This might be kind of painfully slow, but let's try it out. And there's not a lot of periods and commas, but so you can kind of see the effect there, right? When it's a space, it takes a little bit longer. And if it's like a period or an exclamation, it takes longer as well. Okay, so that's kind of what we're going for. And you can adjust that however you want. If you want to increase or decrease the amount that you change the wait time by. Instead of multiplying, you could set it to, you could just set it to however long you want. But that's how we can do that there. So those are some of the fixes I wanted to do with the dialogue system. And next we're going to move on to 2 bugs that we have. The first of these bugs that I want to fix is a pretty minor one, and it's kind of hard to trigger sometimes. It just happened. I don't know if you noticed, but our NPC, he's facing away from us now. And there's just a weird minor bug. And if we go to our wander script, we can see it. So let's see, wander behavior. Let's open this script. And what happens in our wander behavior is we've got these awaits and then we do stuff, right? And we have a few of these: if do behavior equals false, return. And when we're in the dialogue, the do behavior will be false. But you'll notice when we get to this walk phase, we don't have that. And because of that, sometimes the NPC is just going to try and walk. And so it's going to get through some of this code, even though it doesn't all work. It does kind of try and update his animation. So if we set this in here, that should fix that bug. And let's just go ahead and run the project. Notice how he didn't turn away from me that time. Very good. Okay, so I think we fixed that one with just that little adjustment. Okay, and I know there's some people who've been commenting where this particular wander behavior, if you wait a really long time, he can maybe get outside of his area and then he kind of bugs out and does something like my player's doing, right? I haven't encountered that yet, so I'm going to try and make time to reproduce that bug so I can figure out what is causing it and try and fix it. So if anybody has any ideas, please comment below if you've encountered that bug. Now the next bug that we're going to address, the last item that we'll address, is the biggest one, and it's the patrol bug. So if we go back in, remember how when we talked to this guy, I just put a dialogue on him. We talked to him, and he's going to teleport to his next patrol point and start patrolling from there. Okay. I think it's a little bit obvious what's happening, but essentially what's happening is, let's open the script. Whenever that dialogue ends and the behavior begins again for this NPC, it calls the start behavior. And I'm on NPC, hold on. One NPC patrol. Okay. So it calls the start, and in our start, that means the first thing he does is he does this right here, a couple things. And this is where the bug happens, because suddenly the location index gets incremented and we move him to that location, and it's like, oh shoot. Or actually, even before we get here is where it happens. It's right here. He gets to see his global position gets set to the target position at the beginning of his idle, just to make sure he's dead center there. So what's happening is that he gets teleported, and then it sends him to the next location and he starts walking, or he might idle. This one I tried for a while to kind of fix it, and I tried several things, that all caused strange other issues and complications. But I finally did find something that I think works pretty good. So we're going to update this script, and we're going to break our start function apart. We're going to put each phase of his behavior into different functions, and we're going to change how we call each of those just a little bit. But to start, let's add a few variables. So we've got this patrol location, current location index, and target. Right under this, let's add a couple additional variables. So we're going to have one called has started. This is a Boolean, and it can equal false. We're going to have a variable called last phase, which is a string. And for now, we can just set it to an empty string. We'll have a variable called direction, which is a vector 2. And we just don't even have to set that right now. Okay. And then I want to do one other thing, and that's, let's go into our patrol behavior scene. We don't have anything in this scene. I want to add a timer. And I think this would work even without adding a timer, but adding a timer is an easier way to be confident about the fix. So one of the things that could potentially happen as I was working through this is, much like our patrol behavior, we could have this timer that times out and triggers the behavior to try and do something, and we kind of want to avoid that. And if we put a timer in here as a child of this scene, and then this scene becomes paused, then that means the timer is paused, which means the timeout won't happen. And if we look at our scripts in here, let's go ahead and grab this timer actually real quick while we're at the top. Okay, so we've got a reference to it. If we look at our scripts, we do have a couple of awaits. We use this await time and we await the get tree. We create a timer there. So we're just going to replace this timer with the one that we put in our scene so that it will pause. And that way the timeout won't fire, hopefully when we don't want it to. Okay. Okay, so that was the first step though to correcting this bug, is adding some more variables to help us track it. Or not track the bug, but to work around it. With this timer, we do need to make it a one shot. Okay, so that it'll time out and emit that signal. And let's see, let's go down here to our start. It's time to start breaking this apart. So let's begin with the idle phase. And this is going to be everything. Yeah, we want to include all of this, even that if NPC do behavior equals false. So I'm going to cut everything right before we get to the NPC state equals walk. So just cut that out. And let's make a new function called idle phase. And in here, we'll just paste that code, okay? Now, we might need to make some adjustments here. Let me look through this. The thing that we need to do is right before our await, we're going to change this, okay? So this is going to get replaced by some new code. And I'm actually going to make it conditional because we can have a wait time of 0. So if there is a wait time of 0, we don't need to do this code at all. So we'll just say if wait time is greater than 0, then we can do this. And we'll say timer.start wait time. Okay. Right after this, we'll say await. Oh man, I can't type today. Timer.timeout. Okay. So these couple of lines are replacing this line. You can see how we're still using a timer and waiting for the timeout. We're just using the one that we have in our scene and then waiting for it here. Okay. And I think this is easier to read anyway. So there's a benefit to that. And then we've got, so we can go ahead and remove this line of code now. We've got our if NPC do behavior equals false, return. And then we're going to have to call our walk phase now, right? We don't have this function yet, but that'll be the last step here. So we can create that function. Let's go function walk phase. Okay, so there's our walk phase function. For our walk phase, we want to come up again to our start. And I think essentially we just want to grab the rest of this code, right? Because this is our walk phase. It's kind of funny how the walk phase was so much shorter than the idle, but okay. Here we go. So we've got our NPC state equals walk. Now, instead of using this _dir variable, we're going to use the one that we've stored in our class. So just the direction. And we can go ahead and just replace it here and here as well. Okay. And the reason we're doing that is so that it doesn't live within this function, right? It now lives at the class level so that if we have to resume our script later, we still have access to that direction. Okay. It doesn't disappear when the function ends. And if that doesn't make sense, that's because previously we were saying var direction, right? Or _dir, which meant this is a scope issue, and I haven't discussed scope a lot, but that means that the scope of this variable, it only lives within this function. No other function or code can recognize it or access it. But once we use the one that we set at the class level, all the functions have access to it. And so, yeah, that'll help us reuse it if we need to. And then everything else, I think, should be good. Updating the direction and animation, straightforward, right? Okay, so we've updated our phases and we've pulled them out. It's not going to work just yet, obviously, because now we're not calling our phases. We're not doing anything. So let's go into our start, the start for our behavior, and we're going to add the code here. Obviously, we're going to just call our idle phase. That's kind of the first part, right? That'll be the end of this function. And also we're going to do this. We're going to say has started equals true. If you recall, we just created a new has started variable. So now we're going to know if this is like the first time this behavior has started or if it's resuming, because this should only, has started will only be false the first time start runs, okay? So then what we can do now is we can say this, if has started, equals true. If it already has started, then we can do some additional function. And this is what we're going to do. We're going to say, we're going to check our timer. So now that we've got a timer, we can reference it. We've stored it. It's not just that anonymous timer, right, on the scene tree. So if the time left on this timer is greater than 0, or no. if this timer equals, if the time left equals 0, then what we can do is we can say call the walk phase and return. And then that means it's not going to do the idle phase. Okay? No, hold on. I don't want this return right here. I want it right here. One level out. Because this is actually a little bit confusing, I think, now that I'm re-explaining it. Okay, so what this means is because we use our timer in the idle phase, we know that if there is still time left on the timer, that we should still be in our idle phase. Okay? And so we can just return because essentially we're already there. And if that's the case, we've already, our idle phase script is actually going to still be running because it's still here waiting for the timer to time out. That's why we're going to return. Okay, because this means we, our idle phase is still waiting for the timer timeout. Okay, so we don't need to do anything else because then that's going to handle the behavior from there. But if not, if the time left is at 0, then that means the NPC was in the middle of walking. And in that case, we don't want the idle phase, and we know the idle phase isn't going to handle it, and we don't want to call the idle phase again because that's what caused the bug previously, right? Because as soon as we call the idle phase, it's going to teleport him to the next target, yada, yada, yada. So instead, we'll just call walk phase, which, if we look at walk phase, is quite simple. All walk phase does is set his direction towards the target, make sure he has a velocity, and update his animations appropriately. And then he's just moving based off of the code in our process function. Okay, we've refactored our start completely, right? And we've removed the idle and the walk phases, and we've handled them appropriately here. There is a little bit more that we need to do. So let's go up to our process function right up here. Okay, now the only thing that we need to do different is instead of calling start when they reach the target, we'll just call the idle phase. Okay. Now I think this should fix all of the issues we have. So let's run it. Let's just try it out and see how it works. So now if I talk to this guy while he's walking, which is most of the time, there we go. He just resumes walking. Okay. I'll catch him on his way up here. Cool. Okay. So we fixed that bug. In the process, I think we've made this code a little bit easier to understand, I hope. And yeah, that's all I've got for today. So if you are enjoying these videos, I know I'm getting kind of long with this series. I mean, this is video 34, and some of you are still following along, and I think that's awesome, and I really appreciate it. And I do intend to keep going with this series. So stay tuned, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you've got issues or comments, or if you have any ideas on how we could improve anything that I've built, feel free to comment below. I always take those into consideration, even if I don't have time to answer everybody's comments and questions. And so up next, we're going to continue working a little bit on our dialogue system. And I'm also probably going to throw out a couple one-off videos of some other cool features that people can put into games, and some of them might not be related to the AA RPG series. Some of them might be related to platformers or other things, or just general Godot tips and tricks. So once again, though, I appreciate everybody, and thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.